Imagine you could step inside the minds of Canada's healthcare leaders, glimpse their greatest fears, strongest drivers, and what makes them tick. Welcome to Healthcare Changemakers, a podcast where we talk to leaders about the joys and challenges of driving change and working with partners to create the safest healthcare system.
Hey listeners, welcome back. It's Philip from HEROC. First off, thank you for taking time to listen to our podcast. We really appreciate it. And secondly, you're in for a real treat today, as we're sitting down with two amazing people from Peterborough Regional Health Centre, Dr. Lynn Mikula, President and CEO, and Evan Lyons, Executive Vice President, Digital Services Strategy and Transformation, and Chief Information Officer. We were fortunate enough to be in a room with Lynn and Evan recently as they co-hosted an event for the healthcare community, all about AI. So, naturally, we said, you got to come on our show. So, take a listen. Hey listeners, it's Philip here, and we've got another great episode of Healthcare Changemakers podcast. Today, we're sitting down with Lynn and Evan. So, Lynn, Evan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Philip, how are you?
Good. Lynn, tell us a bit about Peterborough Regional Health Centre, and be sure to tell us your career journey that led you there as well.
So the first question is simple and the second question is not so straightforward, but I'll do my best. Peterborough Regional Health Centre is a hospital that I am really proud to be a part of. It is a 500-bed regional health centre about 90 minutes northeast of Toronto. But from the perspective of our patients and the population that we serve, some days it feels like we might as well be on the moon because the travel from here to Toronto when you have a healthcare issue is difficult and for some people almost insurmountable. We don't just look after the sort of city and county of Peterborough, but we provide tertiary services to quite a broad geography that includes some wonderful partner hospitals, and it goes hundreds of kilometers north, south, east, and west. So for some of our services, we look after up to 600,000 people who come to us from quite a vast distance on the worst days of their lives when they need, care that really can't be provided perhaps closer to home. And it's a mandate that we take really seriously and that we're really proud to have. I am the CEO at PRHC. I did not have that on my career bingo card. It was not the plan. I came here out of training to start my practice as a general surgeon. And the reason we moved here was because we had 3 very young kids at the time, and we wanted to raise them outside the big city. And Peterborough was just a wonderful opportunity. And ever since I came here, I've had all kinds of additional opportunities for career growth, development. I've gone in directions that I never anticipated, and I feel really privileged to have the job that I have now.
Very cool. I love that journey. Was there one moment while you've been there that said, you know what, I want to be a leader here?
No, I was being put in leadership positions before I realized what was happening to me. I came full of enthusiasm and ideas, as one does, and I sort of was asked to join some committees and some task forces, and then I was asked to chair a committee. And then before I really knew what was happening, I was starting to lead some of the important work that was going on, and I discovered that I really enjoyed it and that I liked making that kind of a difference and that I had an aptitude for it. So I would say it was much more of an evolution than a moment in time.
No, I love that evolution. And so listeners, if you get tapped to join committees and lead groups, do what Lynn did and go with it.
You never know where it's going to take you.
Right? And Evan, tell us about your background.
So similar to Lynn, I definitely didn't have the role I'm in now on bingo card, as she said, and didn't even frankly have healthcare as an industry sort of on the horizon. So a bit of an unconventional path in getting here. So I started more on the private sector side. So kind of coming up in pharmaceutical and biotech research would be sort of my closest adjacency. But then from there, I worked in major kind of finance and fintech. I've been an advisory board member of a number of tech companies. I worked at the Ontario Securities Commission, so looking from a regulatory lens and a technology lens at modernizing capital markets in Ontario. And then found myself coming to PRHC at the start of 2024, initially as the VP of Digital and Chief Information Officer, and now the Executive Vice President, Digital Services Strategy and Transformation and Chief Information Officer. So it's been a very non-linear pathway for me, but I think some of the consistent themes I would sort of draw out, it's that intersection really of data and transformation, both technology and also sort of the people process side. One thing I would say I've learned in that journey is that the technology is not the hardest part ever. It's really, how do you bring people along in a system that's under constant pressure and apply solutions that actually help them deal with that pressure.
Very cool. And your journey also, like you said, being where you are today, you maybe didn't see it, but I'll ask the same question to you. Was there one moment in that journey that you're like, I really want to lead this, innovation and lead change and be that people leader? Was there a moment that you felt that, like, this is for me?
I think it was really, again, sort of seeing that intersection of the technology, people, and process, and realizing that there's a lot of untapped potential in that space. And then coming into healthcare, I mean, there's so many opportunities to improve and sort of take systems that are already so high performing and find opportunities to enhance them. I think when you look at the amount of pressure that's sitting around an industry and on top of an industry, you'd be hard pressed to find an opportunity that is more enticing than the one that exists within healthcare. So having that opportunity, frankly, is very humbling to be able to come into an environment and do this. And I actually am from this community originally. So to be able to come back and lead in this community and try to impact services for the better that really touch a lot of people I deeply care about, truly, again, an opportunity that I couldn't have drawn up if you had asked me. If you said, 5 years ago, said this is something that you'll be doing, I wouldn't have believed that there'd be a pathway there. But now being here, I'm incredibly thankful for the opportunity to be driving this forward.
That's amazing. And I'm sure you having that a different lens not from healthcare also helps you and Lynn and the team as well.
Definitely. I mean, it makes for an interesting learning curve, that's for sure. And coming into the environment, you have to be incredibly humble. I think if you come in and think that you understand the complexities of health systems, you're set up to lose from the start. So, being able to kind of take that lens and really focus on the learning and observing and listening early was incredibly impactful. But also now being able to sort of infuse different perspectives and bring, again, from different industries, opportunities to try to do things a little bit differently, to do some experimentation with that different lens applied, I think has actually been a significant asset, both to myself in the journey, but now to the organization in the progress that we've been able to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. And on that topic of doing things differently, Lynn, you recently brought the healthcare community together to hear more about your journey with AI. Your vision for the event was to get people in a room to hear the facts. And instead of just talking, participants were tasked with starting a playbook so they could, go back and start a conversation at their organization. So tell us, I guess, start off with maybe your personal journey with AI, because it's a topic du jour. Everyone's talking about it. And maybe why you wanted to host and bring the community together and be that change maker.
So I'm a pretty curious person. And when I encounter something new or something that I don't understand that seems intriguing, I tend to dig quite deep and read a lot, talk to a lot of people. And so when I started thinking about AI and recognizing that it was, a real thing, that this moment is a real moment and that I needed to understand it, and I started following my curiosity, I very quickly learned that the learning curve is actually kind of impossible with AI right now, unless it's your full-time job. And it's certainly not by any stretch my full-time job. So you need to know where to start. And as a healthcare community, as a community of healthcare, managers and leaders and practitioners, we need to be helping each other because it is a vast and a little bit alarming topic. It is constantly changing. None of us can really see that far ahead about where it's going next. One day you think you understand it, and then the next day something new comes along and the whole landscape is shifted. So what I really wanted to do was get people together in a room and say, okay, here's where you can start the journey of implementing it in your organization. Here are some of the safe, practical, sensible first steps that you can take, no matter the size of your organization. You don't have to be a giant academic center. You don't have to be a big hospital. You can be a small rural hospital and still take some safe, sensible, practical first steps. And we can do it together as a community. I believe this technology it has the potential to be deeply transformative in healthcare, deeply disruptive. Some of it will be good. Some of it will be bad. A lot of it we don't understand yet. So let's work together, especially on the early parts of that journey, and let's follow our curiosity together because it will lead us to a more comprehensive understanding of both the benefits and the risks.
No, I love that. And I'm sure, as we all do in our lives, we have people who are telling us about the good and the bad of AI. And so for you personally, Lynn, did you have people on either shoulder? It could be your family, it could be friends, it could be, of course, those you work with who are telling you the good and bad. And when they did, what did you do? Did you say, you know what, I need to do the research myself and understand this better? Or what was your take on that?
I think it's a constant topic of conversation. I had it around the dinner table at Easter dinner, actually, this weekend when my family was going on about the good and the bad of AI, including my 16-year-old, twin boys. So everyone has an opinion on this. And it's because it's changing so quickly. I just think we need to keep asking questions and we need to keep seeking to understand the implications of what is happening around us as best we can. It takes having a lot of different perspectives in the room. One of the really incredible things about Evan joining the team is he brings that new and different outside of healthcare perspective so that we can evaluate what we're facing from a different angle. There's no one voice or even set of voices, but I do think it's incumbent on all of us in leadership positions to keep asking the questions and reading and talking about this as it grows and changes around us.
I love the point you brought up about having different voices at the table, different lenses and perspectives. I also think that's important. And so I know that, many leaders are listening to us now. And so, what's one piece of advice you would give your fellow, CEO peers in the sector on what they should do, to take action today to build that momentum or even at the very least to start a conversation around their boardroom table?
I would say don't actually start with AI, but start with data. Because AI without data is nothing. It has no material on which to operate. So start by understanding the data assets that you have, the state of them. Can you access them? Can you bring them together? In healthcare, we have so much data. We have an incredibly valuable data realm, and a lot of it's disorganized or difficult to access. So start there. Get a handle on your data estate, because without that, any AI implementation that you try to bring in will either be an expensive off-the-shelf thing from a third party that you won't really have visibility into or be able to govern well. Or if you try to do something yourself without understanding your data first, it would be an incomplete or an inappropriate use case. So that's where I got to early on was AI is nice, but fundamentally it's about the data. And in healthcare, we need to do a better job of getting a handle on all of that.
No, I love that you mentioned that point about building that foundation, and that foundation is data. And I would also, now that you said it out, you said it here, I'm like, oh, that does make sense, because why wouldn't you use AI then as your lever to build on the foundation you've created? So that's very, very good advice. Evan, I personally valued your takeaways. You spoke that day of the event, and I really appreciated it. I loved, for you to dive deeper into your points about the value of partnerships. I know Lynn kind of alluded to this as well, and sharing knowledge. And, of course, I cannot bring up communications because it's a favorite topic of mine. In doing the session, you emphasize that open communication and dialogue are key, coupled with your points about the 4 R's of focus. That's reason, readiness, realign, and reassure. So tell listeners more about, your desire to see greater communication, open, transparent communication, and also maybe those 4 R's.
Absolutely. And it's a fantastic question because it's one that's kind of, near and dear for me. And specifically looking at it as we need more open and transparent communication around what didn't work. I think, it's not a healthcare specific thing, but people, I think, generally are a bit apprehensive to share their failures. And I think that's where we're truly going to see the most traction. It's not, kind of reading an article or seeing, an extract of something that has gone well, that sort of curated, desired outcome, but really kind of getting into the mechanics of where things went wrong and, where there is opportunity to do things differently, and specifically where there's opportunity to not repeat a mistake. So for me, I feel very strongly that no healthcare organization should be trying to figure this out alone. I think, if we talk about data, we talk about technology, and then we take it into that sort of next parallel of AI, it's frankly moving too fast. These risks are too real. The learning curve is far too steep for isolated efforts. And the efficiencies to be gained actually exist in the lessons learned from other organizations who are trying to solve similar problems. We have a very unique opportunity in healthcare in that we're all trying to solve the same problems within the same system. So by kind of defined nature, we have opportunity to strongly collaborate. For us, partnerships has really changed that equation, and it's enabled us to be successful. I think, there's that saying, if you want to, go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. I think that's really sort of important in our space. The early innovations are great. It's good for exploration, but really what we want to see is sustained delivery of these solutions at scale. And that's where that sort of together mandate becomes really important. I think, in working with peer hospitals, we've been able to kind of put our heads together. Similar to Lynn's perspective around different voices at the table. Having that sort of larger brain trust, getting together and having these conversations and factoring in different perspectives. One thing I'm really trying to be cognizant of is I'm just one brain amongst, many incredibly intelligent humans. Let's really tap into that network to think about how we use these tools. I think looking at, whether it's academic partnerships or even sort of public-private opportunities like the work that we do with Microsoft, the real value isn't in the technology as a standalone item. It's in the shared learning of how to apply that technology for a specific desired outcome. Like we can move a lot faster and more safely when we compare notes, when we really get together and sort of pressure test those assumptions. And again, coming back to that honest theme around what's working and what isn't. That's really been foundational for us internally at PRHC, but then also externally as we look to engage and work with partners. And on the communication side, which I know is near and dear to your heart, Philip, we learned early that silence really creates fear and disengagement. And that's where that sort of 4 Rs framework really kind of came from. Just to run through it kind of at that high level, that reason, that undying reason, frankly, why are we doing this? What problem are we actually trying to solve? And really being willing to come back and ask the question, has that problem changed? And are we willing to change the way that we go about solving for it? That readiness question, and I think Lynn did a fantastic job of articulating it, but are we as an organization actually ready, culturally and operationally? Do we have the tools to do the things that we want to do? And if not, let's take a step back and do that precursory work. Let's make sure that people are ready to go on this journey together. Then through that realigning, what needs to change in our workflows, roles, or governance. If we don't change operationally, but we improve data and AI capabilities, all we're going to do is accelerate discovery of poor functioning systems. If we get systems functioning better, we can accelerate that good outcome behavior. And then ultimately on reassure, and really be critical here, how do we reassure people about that safety, the ethics, and frankly, the stability of sector going forward? It can't be treated as a purely technical initiative. It really does have to be an ongoing dialogue.
No, absolutely. And I do love your comms point you brought up. I wrote that. I was feverishly writing it down about that silence. It's so important. And I love the fact that you also brought up partnerships, in particular our friends at Microsoft. And, I was going to ask this later, but I'll ask it now. It's clear every healthcare organization will go on their journey when it comes to adapting and adopting, AI. And your journey has led you to partner with a variety of folks, which you just spoke to. And one of them, is Microsoft. And so is there any advice you can give to listeners, both of you, on how organizations should navigate this aspect of their work, especially, with folks like Microsoft and how they can support and be there for you?
I think my advice here is to be very clear about who you are and what you're trying to solve before you partner with anyone. I think, really kind of the strong partners will meet you where you are, Microsoft being a very strong partner. They're not going to or shouldn't sell you a vision that you're not ready for. I think for us, partnerships work because we really anchor everything in patient safety, ethics, and governance first, and then the technology comes second. It really becomes that evaluation criteria for if a particular piece of technology is the right fit for our mandate. With partners like Microsoft, again, being very deliberate. This isn't about experimentation for experimentation's sake. These are words that I say kind of, far too frequently, maybe. But for us, it's about responsible, governed, practical AI that actually delivers real outcomes in a community hospital setting. And then we're equally clear that the partnerships are two-way. We expect to see contributions back into the system, not just sort of consumption of opportunity. And I think for us, by coming to that sort of common and mutual benefit, we're trying to establish a model that is repeatable, that we could look at as a sector to say, here's how we can communally solve problems. These organizations exist within the fabric of our broader society, and one of the key facets of our society is access to healthcare. And I think that those organizations have strong incentive to participate in the strengthening of that system. And then equally so, we should be strong partners to identify opportunities where these collaborations can create opportunity. So I think, navigating those partnerships again comes back to that very strong focus on what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. And then really navigating sort of what is the mutual benefit of that relationship and how can you position your organization and more broadly your sector to be the benefactors of developing such a relationship.
I agree completely. And, in any partnership, values alignment is important and needs to be considered. But when you're looking at a sort of the frontier of an evolving technology, especially in a field like healthcare, values alignment is everything. And there are a lot of people with AI who are just going to want to sell you stuff. A lot of companies who are going to want to sell you a solution. But for me, it's very, very fundamental to take a step back and go, are our values aligned in terms of, the how and the why and the impact and the risk? And if that values alignment doesn't exist, then I don't think it's a partnership opportunity worth exploring.
Oh, fantastic points. You both said it really well. I love the points on clarity and that having that anchor, and Lynn's point on value alignment. I think these are all, and in addition to other stuff, I was feverish again writing notes down. Some great things here for our listeners. Thank you for adding that. I think it's very important because I know we at Hero get lots of questions on how partnerships can evolve for our subscribers and of course, talking about risks. And I think you both have created a really good foundation for those partnerships to evolve. And I can already tell that you've covered off any risks or any, the ways that things can change, but you've captured them all really well. So you both are keen on identifying problems first. There's something we talked about as well at the event, and sitting with your problems, actually taking time to pause, and then the solutions. So why do you both feel this is important, following this kind of like these steps when you're identifying problems?
So for me, it's kind of the anti-healthcare instinct, because healthcare providers, we want to jump to solutions, and many times we need to get very quickly to a solution. And so we're trained in pattern recognition and how to respond appropriately and quickly in an urgent context. But when you're dealing with a complex system and a new technology and something where you don't fully understand all the consequences, I've had to kind of teach myself, and I think it's really important to make sure that everyone spends the time to truly understand the problem as deeply as they can, because then your solutions will be much more rich. They will be much more engaging of all the stakeholders. They will be something where you can manage the unintended consequences better because you understood your starting point. So I'm a big believer in taking that time, doing the Einstein thing, spending a very long time understanding the problem before you try the solution, because I think it's better for absolutely everyone involved. It gets us to a better place. But you do kind of have to hold yourself back as a healthcare provider. You're like, nope, just wait, hang on, we're not there yet. Ask me questions.
I think for me on this one, Philip, it's actually a bit of a personal collision point of value sets. And I think one is sort of conditioned coming up in that sort of private sector vertical where time to market is so incredibly important. I mean, moving fast is what's rewarded. And speed often is worth assumed risk. We're obviously now kind of, spending some time and sort of sitting in the problems of healthcare, realizing that it's very much, not going to be advantageous to try to just rush out and be first. It's really to sort of focus on what is this problem? Why does it exist the way that it does? And I think, one of the most interesting learnings for me coming into healthcare was, at first glance, there's a lot of things that frankly just didn't make sense. You look at a system, you look at a process and say, why are we doing that? But, to actually sort of, sit and listen and understand why things were the way they were, there was a lot of valuable context to be gained just by taking pause. So I would say it's actually been a bit of a learned skill. I had to sort of fight my instinct to want to go and solve all of these problems. But to understand, is this actually a problem at all? Or is this just, kind of an indicator of a bigger problem? Or is this sort of adjacent to a different issue that might have more value in solving it first? I think it's also, too, just about sort of winning that trust with the stakeholders, that you're willing to sit down and understand their lived experience, that you want to functionally understand what they're dealing with on a regular basis. Because it's one thing to sort of look at, the localized provider or the organization problem, but then there's a lot of system level problems that we're all trying to solve as well. So really kind of trying to categorize and bucket the problems a little bit to see, is this, actually a solvable problem? Or is there a number of things that we need to kind of get upstream of on this to put ourselves in a position to then be able to solve it? But I think without taking that time to pause, as painful as sometimes that can be, it really sets ourselves up to go, again, much further to solving the actual problems and not doing the hyperfixation on the adage of low-hanging fruit that people love to use. But you could pluck low-hanging fruit forever without actually making a tangible impact. So by stopping and trying to assess the broader system problems, we actually have opportunity for more impactful change at scale.
Absolutely. And I must add for our listeners that when you both talked about this point at the event, when I was chatting with Catherine, our CEO here at HEROC, about we were trying to solve something and the problem had come up. And I said, what would Lynn and Evan do? And then she's like, yeah. So we sat with this problem and we, let it simmer. And I'm happy to say the problem has been solved. But it was due to you both saying, take that time to pause. And I love the point you brought up, we want to rush to conclusions and solutions, and sometimes that doesn't help benefit anybody.
I love that you've been able to take that and use it in real life. I think it's very uncomfortable, obviously, sitting in a problem as you're now sort of experiencing with that method. But I think if we take a step back and think about it in a relational sense, how much more uncomfortable is it to sit with a solution that doesn't make sense? And I think, if we can put ourselves into the shoes of those that would have that perspective, the amount of discomfort felt by sitting in that problem, I think far exceeds, or it is far more valuable than trying to rush a solution that makes a number of people uncomfortable with your thinking.
Absolutely. This is a leadership podcast, so I do have to ask you at least one leadership question in addition to the ones I asked to start. So my question was about kind of best advice you've received from a family, friend, or mentor, something obviously leadership related that's helped you both on your leadership journey. Is there something that comes to mind?
So I got advice from a whole bunch of people when I was a surgical resident. It's kind of one of those truisms in surgery, eat when you can and sleep when you can. And when you're a junior surgical resident, that's just you need calories and sleep to function as a human being. It's quite basic, but as I've gone on in my career, I keep coming back to that. It's very easy to start to neglect your own needs as a leader. It's very easy to stay in the office a little bit longer, to say you don't have time to exercise, to book the meeting instead of getting home to have dinner with your family, whatever it is. Your calendar stops feeling like your own. Mm-hmm. And this is true at all levels. So I keep coming back to that and making sure that in my day-to-day and my week-to-week, I'm looking after what I need first to stay sort of calm and level and rational and happy and healthy. It makes me a better leader. It makes me a better human being. And although it started with all of the maladaptive, surgical trainee habits that are by no means healthy, it's something that I've turned into sort of my North Star for a leadership practice.
I would say on this one, Philip, it's actually very much sort of rooted in a blue-collar example. It comes from a family member, going back to doing work for my grandfather as a kid. And one of the things that he would say is, don't confuse movement with progress. And this was typically, I'd be raking the backyard and moving the rake, but not moving leaves. And, the idea for me is it's really actually become a huge part of how I lens things in all stops of my career. So again, across all of these different sectors that I've worked in. And now, especially in healthcare, where we can be incredibly busy. There's so many meetings and pilots and initiatives. But real progress only really happens when you slow down enough to make it deliberate and to make value-based decisions. So I think, whether you're raking leaves or trying to implement incredibly complex solutions in the healthcare setting, I think, again, really coming back to and asking yourself, am I confusing movement with progress? I have a lot of great conversations with Lynn around a number of the milestones that we've hit. And, it's great that we've hit these milestones and we've released these production solutions. But taking that step back and saying, are we just moving or are we actually progressing? Are we moving in the right direction? And are we moving efficiently in the right direction? So I think that kind of consistent relensing has been very important in understanding how much of your effort you're investing in things that are actually returning at the rate that you would want to.
I love that advice. Thank you for sharing that advice from your grandfather. That's sweet.
Calling all art lovers and appreciators. We can all agree that art is central to understanding human experience and can provide valuable insights into innovation, leadership, and strategy. HEROC's new strategic plan, The Art of Safety, pulls from both the art and healthcare worlds. It leans into the idea that each person in the Canadian healthcare system has unique skills and talents that are valued. Most importantly, each is a gifted professional, or better yet, a unique artist who is there for their community. Learn more about The Art of Safety by heading over to HEROC.com or by clicking the link under mentioned in this episode. Enjoy the episode.
Now we'll move to our lightning round. A few questions where you can answer just one word or however long you want. And so I'll start off, and you both have to answer the questions. No passes. So what was your first job ever?
I was a secretary at the Department of History at McGill University.
Oh, Department of History. Okay.
I have a much less flashy first job. I worked at a fast food retailer. So I started my working years at
fast food is fine. That's good. If you two could host a podcast about anything at all, who would you want to have a conversation with and why?
My mom, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
She died about 18 months ago, and she was a woman with just incredible life experiences and wisdom. And she hated talking about herself, and she was very humble. And I would sit her down and make her share everything that she had learned with the rest of the world.
Aw, that's sweet.
That's a beautiful one and a very tough one to follow. I wish I had gone first there.
Evan should have gone first.
Yeah. For me, actually, as someone who's new to healthcare and kind of trying to process all of the thinking that's gone into it, I'd love to be able to have a sit down with Tommy Douglas and to actually be able to kind of have more of a long form conversation around what was the plan, and not just the plan beyond the immediate, but now that we're sitting here in 2026. What do you think of where healthcare is at now? And how closely aligned is that to the vision? I mean, I imagine there would be a number of changes, obviously necessitated by an incredible amount of change. But I think it would be really interesting to kind of get back to those roots and understand what was the intent behind the original system design? Where did he as an individual kind of see that going? And then where are we at in terms of, again, I think we're at a very transformative point in where the future of healthcare will go, and to try to capture a little bit of that thinking into the next system redesign for healthcare more broadly.
These are both good. I would listen to both of these episodes you guys are going to have. If we were doing a movie about your life, this is a more pop culture one, who would you want to play you?
Evan, you go first.
I feel like this is the last opportunity to go first. You know what? I think I'd pick Tom Hanks. I think someone that is somewhat universally likable.
Yes,
played a lot of kind of iconic roles, and I think would be able to probably wrangle with a number of sort of my more neurotic tendencies and round me out to be an approachable film character.
That's a good one. It's true. Everyone loves Tom Hanks. Lynn, who would you pick?
So I don't know, Judi Dench.
Judi Dench. She's a good one. Yes.
She's got a good steely-eyed glare. I feel like it would need someone who can pierce someone with their eyes.
That's a good one. I love it. My last question for you. Is there a company out there, it could be any company at all, it doesn't have to be in healthcare, whose culture you really admire? Of course, it can't be yours at Peterborough.
So I suppose saying HEROC is too much of a softball, although you guys do have an incredible customer-focused company culture that is very admirable, but to sort of not be too big of a suck up. I think Patagonia is very interesting.
Yes.
For a number of reasons. I'm a huge outdoors enthusiast, so I love their products, but they have a lot of courage culturally. They are really committed to their values, and they're not afraid to be kind of unconventional and try something new. And I really admire that.
I love that. Evan?
Philip, I'm not just saying this one for effect, but Lynn stole mine. So we're going to do it on the fly pivot. But I think, if I get back to kind of, what I admire an organization for, I think it's sort of two things that need to be present. a high degree of accountability infused with psychological safety. And I think, if I take those values, I think, there's a lot of literature around Pixar as an organization as really kind of utilizing psychological safety to drive innovation and creativity. And I think sort of by nature as an organization, they're curious. I mean, they're trying to solve for making a movie that's interesting to both a 4-year-old and a 40-year-old, which is a tough task to to tackle. And I think, again, there's someone that as an organization, they really value that concept of a brain trust, operating on the belief that all their early movies suck. I mean, they actually, I think, call them ugly babies.
Yeah.
And to be able to sort of fix them and use those as an opportunity, who can use that kind of radical candor without ego to improve the solution. So, I hope that someday I can be someone's ugly baby and they take what I've built and significantly improve on it to impact the lives of those that depend on the health system.
No, those are both great examples. And Lynn, I love the fact that you touched on, the fact that Patagonia, but the points you brought about courage and values and they think unconventionally. And Evan, I love the part about accountability and psychological safety and radical candor. And it's true, I did read a case study on Pixar as well, and how they focus on, truly bringing people together from a variety of, parts of the organization to make some, amazing creative genius storytelling and share that stories with audiences. And that's why you're absolutely right. That's why it resonated. So great points. I must have taken 5 pages of notes from our 30-minute conversation. So I know our listeners are surely going to value this as well. Once again, thank you so much. First, for bringing the community together a few months ago, Lynn. It meant a lot to us at HEROC, but I know in the room, everyone was just so overjoyed that you did that and that you want to make this, a conversation. And it's not something that's one and done, that it's, an ever evolving journey. Mm-hmm. And Evan, we really appreciated everything you had to say at that event as well, and all the insight you brought. And like I said here on this episode, we came back to the office and we put into action what you both taught us. And I think that in itself is a true testament to the amazing work you both are doing to advance safety and innovation in our healthcare system.
Well, and Philip, thank you to you and to HEROC for sponsoring these conversations and other conversations like it for our industry. They're so important, and it's great to have opportunities to come together.
Thank you for listening. You can hear more episodes of Healthcare Changemakers on our website, heroc.com, and on your favorite podcasting apps. If you like what you hear, please rate us or post a review. Healthcare Changemakers is recorded by HEROC's communications and marketing team and produced by Podfly Productions. Follow us on Twitter at HEROC Group or email us at communications@heroc.com. We'd love to hear from you.